Okay, so for my viewers, this might be weird, but what can I say? I'm an English major. I read books. So this may be weird, but hopefully, relax. Hold on with me for a second here. I don't really know how to do this. I'm just gonna read off of what I wrote down after finishing the book. And I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on the book if you've read it, because, I've tried to ask other folks, but it's what I have to say is a bit overwhelming, So I don't know. I'm handing it off to you guys. What do you guys think of what I think? But first, let's just start it off like this, all right? Mexican Gothic is a masterpiece. 9.7 out of 10 for me, honestly. Okay, first I'd like to address a few gripes I personally had of the story, and that's the ending as well. I do not like the idea of the gloom, but narratively and unfortunately... Oh wait, hold on a minute. I should tell you that there are some super, super dark themes in the book, so... That's your content warning, fellas, if you don't really like these really horrible themes. Well, but they're not horrible. They're horrible in the sense they're bad, they're very dark. I recommend you go away. I imagine, I wouldn't... They're not good comparisons, but I would tell you it's like the level of Berserk. In a weird way. Anyways. But nowhere near the craziness of Berserk, anyways. The gloom! The idea of the gloom, it makes sense and it fits with all the clues that the book has been offering to the reader, but the mushrooms that make you immortal, Howard living for 300 years because he possesses his children, the mushrooms that have bonded with the Doyle household, and it gives these guys mind control abilities. It's a tiny bit disappointing to me, personally. In a way that kind of undermines the amazing themes of the book, of colonialism, gender roles, so many other things too. This book has really made an impression on me recently, and this is a different book called Kindred by Octavia Butler. I won't get too much into it, but the idea from that book is that the way there's a thing where the character time travels is forcibly time traveled back to the past, right? But the events of that story are not unfolding due to the time travel for the most part, right? But the gloom revolves around everything, everything essentially, and that kind of ruins it for me personally. But overall, it makes sense, and it's still a really great story, honestly. Alright, real quick though, Francis. Francis, everyone loves Francis. I remember, for class, because we had to read this book for class, I remember saying, I can't forgive Francis for what he did, for that betrayal he got. By the way, I saw that betrayal coming away from miles away. Alright? Listen, I love Francis more than anybody in that room. I'll say it right there. Alright? Alright? But I feel like I've also been critiquing him the most. At least scrutinizing him the most. Anyways. There's a possibility that maybe the gloom was affecting the relationship with him and Noemi, but I don't really think so. That's just a theory I kind of came up with, considering he's a Doyle, and the gloom helps the Doyles out, as seen with Virgil. We'll get to Virgil. Virgil, he is a freak. He's more than a freak, he's a weirdo, and he's more than a weirdo. He sucks. But and Howard wanted Francis to marry Ruth. Wanted Francis to marry Noemi because Howard was going to possess Francis. But something that actually came up to mind during the discussion in class as to why that would not, why the gloom wouldn't work with Francis, is that does Howard really care about consent or whatever? We doubt it. We all doubt it. Let's be honest. It's Howard, dude. Howard Doyle, dude. He's worse in some ways than Virgil, but I still hate Virgil more. But yeah, Francis looking like not as handsome as Virgil. I feel like that might be like symbolizing inbreeding in a way, considering the Doyle family is trying to keep it in the family for the most part. And while like his father Richard was outside of the family, right? I still feel like him looking the way he looks may have been a result of all the inbreeding going on, honestly. And if not the result, he at least symbolizes that, I feel like, in some way. Now the ending. I feel like the ending was good, but Virgil became a mustache twirling villain. This guy, his actions kind of made sense considering the type of person he is. The only things that don't make sense were his words and the way the actions were played out. For example, Virgil, there's no way Virgil could have predicted that Howard was gonna get blasted with a gun and stabbed by Catalina, etc., etc. There's no shot, no world where Virgil was like, oh yeah, my father's about to get absolutely blasted in that room. Like maybe he could have predicted a lot of things, right? Catalina and Noemi getting caught with Francis, them getting escorted into Howard's room for Francis' body to be taken over. But what they could not have predicted, what he could not have predicted, was Howard getting blasted by Catalina and Noemi. No shot. Not in a trillion years. Really, I don't know how Virgil thought that was gonna play out, really. I really don't. Because what if it went the other way? What if Howard was able to fully control Francis? Catalina does not enter a rage, and it's just game over for Virgil. What is Virgil gonna do? But like I said, all of that really does not hinder the story, even though I really, really don't like the idea of the gloom. I really do think it's a bit disappointing that it exists, honestly, because I don't know, there's something about the mystery of it, right? The mystery of the whole story. You're trying to piece it together. The clues are there for you to figure out, oh, it is the gloom. But you would never say, oh, I knew it was the gloom the whole time. No, you didn't. No shot. Alright, you could predict a lot of things. You could compare the story to a lot of things and be like, oh, the house is gonna burn down at the end of the story. That is something I predicted. I'm pretty happy with that, honestly. I predicted it instantly. But that was only because I was comparing it to the book Kindred, where at the end of the story, the house burns down. So that's the only way I predicted that. But there's simply, there's simply no way anyone could be like, oh yeah, I expected there to be a mind-controlling life longering, I don't know, infinite life fungus growing under the house that it also creates ghosts, kind of, and illusions. Oh, and the household has mind control powers because of it, because it's in the blood. No, there's just no way. I was gonna talk more about a bunch of things, now that we know how the gloom works, how do Noemi's dreams work, and the relationship with Francis and Florence, because she's the mother, he's the son, but she only thinks of him as a body, which is disgusting. I know Florence. I know some of the trauma that Florence must have been through to have reached this point, this horrible point where she feels like she is going to be born in in the Doyle household, live in the Doyle household, and die in the Doyle household. Have I been saying Hoyle? I hope not. Jeez Louise, fellas. And it's insane to me. It's insane to me that a person could be this gone, but unfortunately, it's not impossible to think that this is something that could be grounded in reality. Someone so broken that they choose a path that is different than what what people would have hoped for, what she could have hoped for herself. I really do compare her to Ruth, which is what I'm going to do for my essay, by the way, for my class on that, comparing her to Ruth and how they connect to the ideas of despair and hope in the story, right? And I compare her to Ruth because what really connected it to me was Florence holding the gun. She's like an inverted Ruth. It really is. Like Ruth out here shooting Howard, shooting other members of the Doyle family to end the cycle, to give hope to whatever, right? That's what you got there. Giving hope to Noemi by guiding her through out of the sight of the gloom, by telling her to open her eyes, and showing her how to destroy the gloom, and Agnes, right? Meanwhile, we have Florence, who believes she's gonna live and die here, is strict on Francis and only gives Francis like basically labor, and maybe he gets free time, but it seems like it's all house labor, just like her. And technically, she's just working for Howard. And then, they're just so similar in so many ways. I mean, even to Howard and their connection to Howard is so similar. Ruth almost gets strangled to death by Howard, which causes her to disobey Howard and rebel. Meanwhile, Florence almost gets I'm gonna rip the band-aid here. Almost gets, I don't know. It's weird. I can't say these things out loud. It's hard for me to say these things out loud because they're disturbing. But Florence almost gets, well, we don't know how far Howard went with Florence, but Howard tried to impregnate Florence, but he was just too old. So, and that may have not caused her to obey or whatever, but definitely caused her to I don't know, it caused something clearly in her to feel as if she would live and die in high place. And even if that didn't, the death of Richard may have done that itself, which is similar to Ruth, where the death of Ruth's lover had led to her disobeying, while the death of Florence's lover may have led her to just obeying. It's interesting the differences between the two. Like Florence literally is an inverted Ruth. They're cousins too, and I guess technically kind of they're sisters-in-laws, or I guess Florence would be a sister-in-law if Ruth actually got married. But they are cousins, so it's interesting that they're cousins, and yet they're so similar that you'd think they'd be brother and sister, or sister and sister. I was thinking about how I was looking at this family tree, because the family tree of the Doyle household is so confusing to me. So I had to look at other sources here, and it says that Florence and Virgil aren't actually brother and sister, which is what I thought actually, but they're actually cousins. And apparently Virgil and Ruth are brother and sister. Apparently, according to the I might be wrong, the family tree might be wrong, but that's what I saw. So I'm gonna believe that one. I might be wrong though, which is crazy to me, because Virgil and Ruth are so entirely different. I don't even know how to even begin comparing the two. But I could easily compare Florence and Ruth and Noemi and Francis to Virgil, etc., 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 right? But comparing Ruth to Virgil, I mean, yeah, you could do the obvious thing and say, oh, well, one's super evil and one is not super evil. Oh, wow, genius. I do think it's interesting though that essentially Florence and Ruth die in the same way. I know, kind of weird, right? When you think about it, because they do die in fairly different ways, but they do kind of die in the same way. Howard controls Ruth for like a millisecond and forces her to off herself. Well, Florence, though not like mind controlled by Howard, is still what a weird word to use, a disturbing word more likely, submissive under Howard, and you can't even imagine Florence as a submissive character, so saying that is even more weirder, but she is there, and she's under Howard's control in a different way, but still under Howard's control, and it seems like Francis kills her, right? But we can still kind of see that maybe Florence kills herself in that moment, because she didn't have to fight Francis for the gun. She didn't even have to go for the gun, but she did, because of that. That's how deep under the control of Howard she was, that she would fight her own son for a gun to kill Noemi, Catalina, Francis, doesn't matter who. She'd kill anyone. Oh man, which is kind of similar to Ruth. Ruth would kill anyone just to break the cycle, but Florence would kill anyone just to keep the cycle in check. See how similar they are now that I'm just saying it? It's actually insane how similar they are. I'm glad I'm saying this out loud. It helps me air out my thoughts for the essay. I mean, I already have like a whole outline down, but it's nice hearing my thoughts about it, honestly. They are so similar there. Damn, I didn't even realize how similar they were until I started yapping about it. Damn, what are your thoughts on that, guys? So Florence and Ruth, huh? The same or different people? Similar people, huh? Or at least somewhat similar? It's super interesting to me. Honestly, now that I'm talking about it. That was like one of the last things... I'm sorry. That was one of the last things I did for my assignment, my free write assignment, talking about the book after I read it. And so I didn't think much of it. It was like a last minute thing too. I was about to submit the assignment, but then I was all like, wait a minute, suddenly I feel bad for Florence. So then I started talking about Florence and how she's kind of similar to Ruth. So that almost like didn't even come into existence, that idea that I had in my head. But it did. It's actually kind of crazy, honestly. Wow. They are super. Man, I wish I could talk to the author of the book, ask her if she did this on purpose, kind of draw comparisons or made parallels with those two characters, or if it was just absolute coincidence. Knowing writers, they're probably just gonna say, "What do you think?" Yeah. I don't know, but a lot of writers just write, right? And then they may have like some intended metaphors and ideas for the book for readers to grasp. And then some things are just unintended overall, right? So it's interesting, honestly, but super interesting how that works. I guess that's just, that's just how it works. I think it's great. And that's why I think this is my favorite English class, and the professor that does the classes, they're always a banger. They always go hard, honestly. I always look forward to the classes. I wanted to get this class, I think, last semester, but I missed it, or something happened there, where I just couldn't get it last semester, or in the summer even. I don't remember what it was specifically, but I'm glad I have it now. Because this is just great. We are now going to read In the Dream House. I haven't read In the Dream House yet. I hope my professor doesn't find this and realize that I just came to class without reading In the Dream House yet. If Professor, if you're somehow seeing this, I lied. I was actually lying. I did read. Actually, I read the entirety of In the Dream House, actually. Yeah. That's all I had to say. Thank you. Like if you want to, dislike if you want to, and subscribe if you want to. Peace, guys. Yeah, it's my classic outro that I rarely say, but I have I'm under an obligation to say it, for videos. Yeah, that's just how it is.